Okay, guys, so it's time for the last movie I'm going to review for the Spider-Man franchise before Spider-Man No Way Home. And the last one is, of course, Far From Home, which is the most recent Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. Of course, we got Venom Let There Be Carnage after this. Um, but we have Far From Home, which is a Spider-Man movie that I really appreciate, but also really get annoyed by. It's so weird because Spider-Man Homecoming, rewatching that one, I always forget how great of a movie it is. I forget that it really does a fantastic job rebooting Spider-Man a second time. Really gives Peter Parker, that version of Peter Parker, a really good story, a great villain with Michael Keaton as the Vulture, Adrian Toomes, and even the Marvel references to the MCU didn't bother me as much in that one as opposed to this one, where this one feels like it's weird because I really think the last act I really like, but the rest of the movie I'm just whatever about, honestly. But let's start from the beginning. I really liked the opening credits after the Maria Hill and Nick Fury thing where it's got Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You song, which I think is a really hilarious thing because it's literally a slideshow with pictures of the Avengers that have died, Captain America, Black Widow, and Iron Man, who have died during Endgame, and Vision as well. But it's played with that music by Whitney Houston, and it's a slideshow from that teenagers made, so it is very unprofessional. It's what something teenagers made, and it's really funny. It's a good joke, and I think it's hilarious with that song. Um, and you can even see the cuts on like the PowerPoint presentation, like how it just looks off because it's not supposed to be exact, like because it's just these kids are just kind of putting it together pretty quickly. Um, and then they explain pretty quickly in this movie what happened after Avengers Endgame with the blip. The name for what the snap was, where like everybody comes back, and there's a funny moment where all the kids in the gymnasium, half of them fade away in Infinity War, and then it shows them all pop back, and they just all hit everybody else, and everybody falls down. Like that was good. The humor in this has some funny moments in it. Um, so I like the opening. I thought that was pretty solid. I appreciate the fact that in this movie, as opposed to Spider-Man: Homecoming, in which I love Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I love the fact that Peter wanted to be an Avenger so bad, but then by the end of the movie, with the Vulture's lesson he taught him, he didn't want to be a huge Avenger. And then Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame had taught him that he doesn't want to be the next Iron Man. And I like how this movie kind of makes it to where everybody's inflating his ego. Like he doesn't want to be the next Iron Man. He wants to have a summer vacation. He wants to actually not have a world-ending adventure like in Infinity War when he faded away and then came back in Endgame. So I really like that this character is the opposite of Homecoming, where he doesn't want to be this huge hero. He wants to be have a summer vacation with MJ, Michelle, and like his friends, Ned. Um, and also, I do appreciate that this movie is the only Spider-Man movie so far that is not set in New York City. It's set in Europe, basically. It is literally different location from the other Spider-Man movies, and I think that alone, whether the execution is great, I think is a good mix-up and change-up because we've had, in like the live-action Spider-Man movies, we have had 6 up to this point live-action movies of Spider-Man set in New York. So I really do appreciate the fact that it changed it up in terms of like location. Um, I also thought it was interesting that Nick Fury is almost a main character in this, like Iron Man kind of was in Homecoming. Kind of. He was not completely like a main character, but he was important enough where he really could feel his presence, even though Robert Downey Jr. wasn't in that movie that much. But they really made a good point to have his character in that. In this, Nick Fury is also one of the characters that is from the MCU that's really important in this one, like Tony Stark was in Homecoming. And I like his scenes, but whenever you realize in the end, like with the Skrull thing, like I'm like that, it doesn't really fit, like in terms of like Nick Fury wasn't really there ever in this movie. It's very weird with how they executed that at the end of this movie, where the Skrulls were the Skrulls from Captain Marvel, the things that can transform, they're just pretending to be Nick Fury and Maria Hill the whole movie, which I thought was very weird. I was like, that's a weird ending credits. I don't understand. But I know it's setting up the Secret Invasion series. So we also get Mysterio as the villain in this, who Jake Gyllenhaal plays, and Jake Gyllenhaal is awesome. Great casting, great having him in this movie. But honestly, like I liked the performance a lot, but I thought that his character, compared to Vulture in Homecoming, like this character didn't completely teach Peter Parker a lesson, and he felt less of a complex villain like the Vulture and more of just I want revenge on Iron Man, Tony Stark, because Tony Stark took away all our equipment and we're using that now that he's dead. So it's just it kind of felt generic with like the villain's backstory, Mysterio's, but I did think Jake Gyllenhaal did good, like he does in every movie, but I just don't, he is definitely one of my lesser favorites, like in terms of the whole like Spider-Man villains and the Marvel villains, or the MCU villains pretty much, but I did think it was interesting that Mysterio's past is to Tony Stark, in which he did work for him, and that barf thing that it's the abbreviated word. I forgot what it is unabbreviated, but barf. It's that thing that you can see all around you. It's like a virtual surroundings, and they did that in Captain America: Civil War with Tony Stark at the beginning of that movie, and it's weird because the villain, like I said, isn't very interesting, even though Jake Gyllenhaal is great in it, but I didn't find the villain that interesting, honestly. I did think it's interesting, though, that it said that he's from another universe, and by the looks of the trailers for Spider-Man No Way Home, he might not have been lying, because there are multiverses, and there are multiverses in the new movie coming out, but I wonder if he was lying about it, or if he just knew that there was a multiverse, but I don't know. We'll probably get that reassurance and answer in Spider-Man No Way Home. But we don't know that yet. I cannot wait for Spider-Man No Way Home. Like I said, I've got my tickets already. Seeing it Thursday, so I'm really excited. I liked, in this movie, like I like Spider-Man a lot, like I usually do. Tom Holland, I think, still does a great job. I think he doesn't learn as much as the last movie. It's kind of like with the villain. Like I feel like this one is a lesser version of Homecoming if you compare the two. But I liked Tom Holland still. I thought he was still good, like he is in all the other ones. I really like Zendaya in this. I thought that she, as Michelle MJ, was really, really funny. Like she had some funny moments in Homecoming, but I thought she really kind of stood out in this one more. Like her comedic timing in this is really good, and I really like that. It's an actress I know nothing about. I know that I think she might be a singer. I don't know, but I really like her in both of these movies, and this one especially. This one I think makes it even better than Homecoming. Like I thought she was fine in Homecoming, and she had some funny jokes, but she's almost laugh out loud funny in all the lines she says in this one, and I do like that and appreciate that. And MJ also figures out that Peter's Spider-Man in this, which is great, because by the end of the movie, it fits with their characters, and it's not like it's not like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 where it's a big moment, like MJ figures it out, or even The Amazing Spider-Man where Gwen Stacy figures out when they're just on the rooftop. Like this feels very not like big reveal. It's just like, oh yeah, you're Spider-Man. I know. You're always not here. You're always hiding and disappearing places. Like I know you're Spider-Man. It's pretty obvious. Like I did think that was funny because that fits with the character Michelle. But so I enjoyed that. I liked their romance more from rewatch. I thought that it actually worked pretty well because they were awkward teenagers, and I thought that they had good chemistry with each other, Tom Holland and Zendaya. The climax I really liked. So, like I said, the first 2/3 of the movie I thought were fine, but it's definitely one of the least watchable Spider-Man movies for me overall. Like I don't want to say it's less watchable than Spider-Man 3, because Spider-Man 3 I think has a better first hour than this, but then the second hour is really lame. So this is the opposite, where I really like the last 2/3 of it a lot, but the first 2/3 of it just really is a slog to get through. Like, some of the humor isn't that funny. I think it kind of just feels like shenanigans, and it doesn't feel like a lot happens until the third act. Like, in this movie, like it feels like it's a lot of filler. Like, in this movie, I think, compared to Spider-Man: Homecoming, or even compared to the other Spider-Man movies for the most part. But the climax is really cool with the fact that Mysterio can use illusions, or technology. He's not like magical, and I think in the comics he's more of a magical being that can do that. But in this, he's a technology guy, because, like I said, he's using Tony Stark's technology that will create a whole environment. So he completely throws Spider-Man off his trail and throws off this really cool climax where Spider-Man is just flying around trying to destroy these drones. Like, I think that is really cool and creative, and that was really something I didn't really see much in these superhero movies. Like, I did enjoy that climax. I thought it was really well done. Of course, Mysterio I don't think is dead, because, like any Marvel villain, they're never truly dead. But they make a point to say that he's dead, and even Edith, the glasses that he wears, that Peter wears, Edith even says at the end, like there's no illusion, like, but they didn't say that he was dead, that Quentin Beck was dead, Mysterio. So Mysterio, I think, is alive, and I feel like he will return in Spider-Man: No Way Home. I have a feeling for some reason he's going to appear, but I really thought the third act was good. I really enjoyed it. But like I said, I just really felt like the first two acts are a slog with just the humor that doesn't really work that well for me for the most part, besides Zendaya, which I thought she was really legitimately funny. Um, there's a lot of humor where it's just like it's weird because Spider-Man is humorous and funny in other movies, but like this one just I felt like it was kind of overkill with the humor, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't super funny in this one. And I liked how it ended with Peter and Zendaya, or I mean, sorry, not Zendaya, Peter and Michelle, MJ, getting together. And I thought that was a good character moment with those characters just like being who they are now together. I thought that was awesome. And then we get to the mid-credits scene, which of course everybody knows in the world now because it's of course in the trailer for Spider-Man: No Way Home, that scene. But Peter Parker's identity is revealed to be Spider-Man, to the public, to everybody. And Quentin Beck quickly said before he is killed that Spider-Man set the drone so it's going to kill everybody or something. And then Peter Parker, like Aunt May said in the last movie, the last line of the movie is "What the," and then it just cuts away, or it cuts to credits. So it was really funny, and the fact that you get J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson was a legitimate great surprise. Like, in the theater, I was like, oh my god! Like, rewatched, like whenever I first saw this in the theater in 2018, I was like, holy shit! They brought back JJJ. That's awesome. And it's really cool that they're bringing him back for Spider-Man: No Way Home as well. I really love that actor, and like I said, he was not in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and he was of course in Sam Raimi's trilogy and was fantastic in those. And I love that. Hopefully, in every multiverse, there will just be a J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson, which I'm fine with because I think this is a different iteration than the one from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Or maybe not. They'll maybe explain that and say different in No Way Home, but who knows? But that was a fantastic stinger credit, like mid-credit scene. Like that, honestly, I'd take that over the first two halves of the movie in terms of, like, I like the end credits more than the first two halves of this, but I like the climax of this a lot. Like, the third act was pretty good, but I felt like this movie just kind of suffered from being kind of a slog. And I usually don't say that about these Spider-Man movies. Like, they all usually are very interesting. This one is one of the least interesting until the end, where the end is really great, but it just takes a long time to get there. And I didn't mention the second after credits because I guess I already did, about the Skrulls from Captain Marvel, and they were disguised as Nick Fury and Maria Hill, and then it leads up to that Secret Invasion show that they're going to put on Disney Plus. But I didn't really mention that at first because I was like, that's not really connected to Spider-Man now. Which this movie, I think, does a thing that kind of annoys me, in which it Spider-Man Homecoming as well is connected to the MCU, and they have all the MCU references. I felt like this one was a little bit too much with the MCU references, if that makes sense. Like, I felt like Spider-Man wasn't completely his own character, and I feel like whenever Marvel did it without the MCU, like, I thought Spider-Man had more of an emotional plight to him, in terms of like, he's this character that has gone through so much, but now in the MCU it's like you have to build up all of the connectivity to the other ones. And like I said, Homecoming I really loved, and I didn't really have that many issues with the connections to the MCU in that one, because I felt like it gave a story that was really emotional and really built up Peter Parker as a hero and becoming a hero with the villain, the Vulture. In this one, it's similar to that, but I just felt like it just didn't feel the same. Like, I felt like there were I love Samuel L. Jackson, of course, but like, I felt like his character in this, I don't know why he was like, I mean, I understand the story point of it, of them being in it, him and Maria Hill, but I'm like, I honestly would have rather gone with like, it didn't have to have them in it. And that's bad to say because I love those actors, but I was just like, it kind of felt like it needed to be more of its own thing this time. And hopefully in No Way Home, it's going to be that, because it's got Doctor Strange, but that seems like it's it. And it feels like it's going to be kind of Spider-Man fighting the villains from the other universes, as opposed to most of the MCU connections. Which you would think that I would love that, because I love the MCU, but it's like Spider-Man has already had a history in film of not being connected to the MCU, and now they're kind of trying to skirt that balance between it. We've got to have him in the MCU and we got to reference everything else, but he also needs to be his new iteration by himself as well. So I do still like this movie, despite the fact that I just thought the first two acts were just kind of a slog. The humor sometimes didn't work for me. But I said, like I said, the third act is great. Great action sequences, great character moments, but I just felt like it just was a real long time to get there. And I hate to say that, because I usually don't say that about Spider-Man movies, but I'm repeating myself again. That is pretty much all I could say about Spider-Man No Way Home. And I really like the artwork for this as well. This is just the reversible artwork, or the slipcover artwork, because there's the actual like artwork for the real release, and it's got Iron Man on the back. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I like I said, it's totally fine. Not my favorite Spider-Man movie. Definitely one of my least favorites. Has a great climax, but that's pretty much it. So can't wait for No Way Home. I finally reviewed them all again, so I am prepared. And I'm debating on if I'm going to do a video on like what I expect to happen in No Way Home, because I kind of want to talk about that, because there's so many things that could happen, so many fan theories, blah, blah, blah. So we'll see. I might make a video on that, but regardless, I'm going to see Spider-Man No Way Home this Thursday, so a review will be up in the next day or so after that. So that is it for this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.